Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Happy Friday Eve to you. Y'all, I am ready for this weekend. I have got so much to catch up on. Don't even want to think about it, so I'm not, at least until Saturday. Music fact of the day. This is a weird one. I love Paul Simon, and his first solo hit was a song called Mother and Child Reunion. How did he get the name for that song? Well, he came across it browsing over a Chinese food menu, and one of the dishes was chicken and egg, and it was named Mother and Child Reunion. I'll never listen to that song the same way again. I was sitting out on my porch today. It's been really beautiful here in Greenville, low 80s, low humidity, little fan going, dogs laid out everywhere, iPad, laptop. I'm all set. Just came in actually, and it's 9 o'clock. And I made myself come in because I'm tired of going to bed at midnight or later every night. During the day, I just kind of stopped and I had been reading some articles about who Mo Wilson was, just aside from Kaitlin, because I always like to learn more about the victims of the cases I'm covering because it makes it more real for me of the life that's lost and not just a name and a still photo. Luckily with Mo, if you're interested, there are a lot of interviews with her on YouTube, and it really just gives you a peek into this very focused but very warm and inviting person. You ever look at a video or a picture and you can just kind of get a feel for the person and how they might be in real life? Mo just has this radiating warmth about her, somebody that you probably could have laughed until it hurt with, but also pour your heart out to. I don't know. She just really gives this amazing impression of the woman she was. And it makes the loss of Mo real, even for somebody like me who didn't know her. But then you look at what Kaitlin did after this murder and the lengths that she went to, traveling to Costa Rica, getting this very extensive plastic surgery to disguise herself, to hopefully, in her mind, get away with this for the rest of her life and just die of old age in Costa Rica at a yoga retreat. And it's interesting because yoga is supposed to calm the mind and the body, and the mind and the body are one, and it's about peace and spirituality. And it really didn't have that effect on Kaitlin, obviously. She didn't have inner peace first and foremost with herself, because none of this would have happened if she had. You have to wonder, people that knew Kaitlin before all this and knew her well, you know how we felt when we saw that mugshot. After she was busted, we had seen this picture, the common picture, which I believe is probably her driver's license photo. And then you see this after picture. And if you were to put those two pictures side by side to me and I didn't know a thing about this case, I would never say that's Kaitlin Armstrong in both photos. I would say maybe a cousin, if I'm being generous. I mean, aside from taking Mo's life, which is the biggest tragedy of all of this, look at what she did to herself to cover for what she did to Mo. It blows my mind every time I sit and kind of take inventory of the progression of this case. It's mind-blowing. It's one of those very unique cases that, unfortunately, we'll remember a very long time due to her antics, but I really want people to know who Mo was for those of us who weren't blessed to know her. Greenville, where I live, is a big cycling community. We have famous retired pro cyclists that live here. The Hincapie brothers live here. They have a beautiful bed and breakfast just about 20 minutes from where I live, big store downtown with cycling gear. We have 22 miles of paved roads for cyclists. We have mountain biking. So the scene here is very bike friendly. We have the biking cafes. And the one thing that I've noticed about the cycling community just here in Greenville and then through researching this case is, even though cycling is such a competitive sport, they're also fiercely protective of each other. And they're just one huge family at the end of the day. They can be trying to bust it out and get ahead of each other all day long on those trails. But when the race is over and they crack open a few cold beers and are celebrating the day, and I think that's a really cool thing, because when you can find a passion that you can share with your closest friends and even strangers, that's such a unique little world that they existed in. And the loss of Mo to the cycling world was so profound. And if you take the time to read some articles, you'll see that. It is just devastating. She was going places. That was something that Kaitlin didn't have in her corner. She didn't seem to be super good at anything. And Mo was really just getting her feet wet in the cycling world. Just tragic, as is every murder case that we cover on here. A few things that I learned about Mo today, just looking her up, Google searching and watching videos. The girl apparently was a master at baking banana bread and she loved anything maple. I'm going to link an article in the description of this. It's from bicycling.com. It is the cutest little story in the beginning of how Cash and Mo met. And even though we kind of assume maybe they've been friends for years, they were only friends for just right at 6 months before Mo was murdered from the time they met. But the story's very cute. And it also goes on, and I'm not going to be able to talk about the whole story in this episode. We'll do the next part on the next one. If you want to read it before that comes out, which will be next week, there's no court tomorrow, by the way, click that link and go check it out. But how did they meet? Well, Cash lived in Austin and she worked in tech as a project manager until the pandemic. Then she went in with some friends and bought a little inn in East Burke, Vermont. That's about less than an hour from the Canadian border. And on August 1st of 2021, she was helping organizers of a bike race, which was called Rooted, with their social media and just happened to take this 6-second video of Mo. This race was tough for Mo. She broke a chain, got a flat tire, fell behind in the pack. Cash saw Mo persevering through this with the biggest smile on her face. And the video's 6 seconds, but it made this huge impact on Cash just seeing this resilience with Mo. By the way, this race was the only time that Mo's family got to see her race in a professional capacity. She later met Mo's family at the race. They realized they live really close to each other in East Burke. So after the race, Cash would just stop by and talk to Mo's mom. She would stop and talk to Mo's brother. She would help him stack firewood. And so she kind of bonded with other people in the family before Mo. There's a race in Arkansas, and Cash was still a little bit bashful about introducing herself to Mo, because Mo was really starting to explode onto the cycling scene at this point. She was winning races, kind of the toast of the town. This race was Mo's first big win. And later that evening, all the cyclists are gathering at a bar, and Cash finally wants to go up and introduce herself to Mo. Well, Mo sees her and gives her a little wave and says, "Cash, I've been looking forward to meeting you." And that just kind of was like the fuse that was lit to this really brief but beautiful friendship. And just within weeks, Mo was crashing at her apartment in Austin, very much like she did when she was murdered. They had a lot of the same interests, like cooking, but went at it a very different way. That Christmas, Cash spent it with Mo and her family in Vermont. Mo's mom really recognized this soul sister bond that these girls had very early on. And that's something that stuck out to her in the beginning. It takes a turn, obviously, and talks about when her mother was notified that her daughter had been killed. And her mom was outside working in her potato beds when a cop car pulled up. And they tell her that Mo's been shot and killed the night before. Cash had not talked to them at that point. I can't even imagine the emotions that Cash went through. We didn't get to hear that 911 call. I heard it was very heart-wrenching, just devastating for her, what she walked into and found, what she did for, we know, at least 8 to 10 minutes doing CPR on her friend. I'm sure she was in shock from all of it that night before. But in spite of that immense grief and shock, both Cash and the Wilsons, they still had to talk to police. They had to tell them what they knew, who might want to hurt Mo, talk about people that were close to her. They had to make decisions about Mo's personal items. Media requests were starting to pour in because Mo was not a no-name in the cycling world. She was quite the opposite. And just 3 days after her murder, there was still the race that Mo was in town for. The first 8 miles of that 150-mile race was essentially a funeral procession to honor Mo's life. In the days and weeks and months after Mo was killed, Cash just struggled to do basic things, as I think we all would, given what she went through. And when talking about trying to help Mo up till the very end, she told the publication bicycling.com, "I didn't give up." And she didn't. At this point, Cash was staying with her dad because she didn't know if that was meant for her. At that point, there had been no arrests, nobody publicly named as a suspect, and she was calling the police very frequently to see if anything had happened in the case. At the same time, women in the cycling world started to get worried that maybe Mo had a stalker, which she did, but they weren't thinking what we know now. And they specifically thought that the Strava app could have been how whoever killed her found her. We know that to be true. It got so bad for these women not knowing what had happened to Mo, that they were even questioning whether or not they should post on their social media accounts for their own safety. Also, one thing that really bothers people close to Mo is seeing the phrase love triangle. It's not who she was. It's not what she was involved in. It's just so far from the person that Mo was to say that she was in this love triangle. And then it becomes kind of a reality show, headline, gossip magazine sort of a situation, when really it boils down to the fact that you have one woman who couldn't handle her emotions and took it out on an innocent woman, something everybody else didn't know. That wasn't the case, but it was kind of being paraded as if maybe there was this secret love affair going on. And by all indications, that wasn't the case. They didn't live in the same city. They didn't see each other every week. After that brief time together, their common ground really was at bike races. While Kaitlin was on the run, Cash would Google Mo's name every single day just to see if anything had broken the case. Mo's family, on the other hand, didn't do that. Her mom said she found comfort in Mo's journals. And at the time of the interview, her mom said she was focused on Mo, eating, surviving, and breathing. Cash, in the meantime, was doing that what if in her head. What if I'd have stayed home? What if I had come home earlier? Would this have changed the outcome? Reporters were coming to her house. People were trying to break into that apartment. And police finally allowed her to go back to get her belongings from the house. And she said when that moment came, she almost couldn't step inside. She took Mo's suitcase that had her belongings she had come to Texas with to her family in Vermont. Mo was actually living in San Francisco at the time she was murdered. So she had some friends who drove her car from San Francisco to Colorado and then filled that car with a lot of belongings from Mo's apartment and shipped it the rest of the way to Vermont to her family. Mo's mom didn't touch a lot of her things for a while. Eventually, she found herself smelling Mo's clothes. And Mo's philosophy came from one of her favorite books, which was called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. The book is about two different mountains, and one mountain represents family, career, and ambition. The second mountain represents leading a moral life. Mo told a friend that she wasn't going to do one mountain at a time. She was going to do both at the same time. Her mom read the book after Mo was murdered and really focused in on the lines and the paragraphs that Mo had underlined and the pages that she had dog-eared. Originally, Mo wasn't a cyclist. She was an alpine skier. She was raised in Vermont. Her dad was on the U.S. national team. As a workout, Mo would mountain bike because mountain biking uses the same muscle groups as skiing. So in the spring, it's a good way to keep your muscles toned since you can't get on the slopes. Over time, it became clear that Mo really had this talent for biking. I mean, she was leaving everybody in the dust. Mo was also known to be a perfectionist, so much that one little error on her homework at night would have her just starting over on whatever she was doing. And eventually, her teachers just stopped giving her homework so she wouldn't stress so much. That's where her love of baking banana bread came in. She would come home from school and bake banana bread to just kind of decompress. And that's something that she did up until she was murdered. In her freshman year in college, she was injured. Since she couldn't ski, she just helped her teammates work out and really hit that weight room hard. Her persistence paid off. Her senior year, she reached that top billing position, and her struggles with skiing motivated her for that eventual success that she found as a pro cyclist. Right after the murder, her mom was reminded often that Mo was just gone. She had put 6 months of plans on her Google Calendar, so she had things mapped out. It took her mom the whole summer to finish unpacking Mo's belongings. You know, sometimes in tragedy, there is really this little beautiful silver lining that you don't see coming, and you might not realize it until much later. But Cash had lost her mother 10 years earlier. Mo's mom had lost her daughter. So they filled the huge voids in their lives with each other. That's only half of the article. We'll finish that on the next episode, but I wanted to tell you guys a little bit I've learned about Mo and also the effect that this murder has had on those who know and love her. So let's get back to day 6 of testimony in this trial. They recalled the vice president of Strava, Brian Bell, to the stand. It was very, very brief, but he said that Kaitlin's Strava account did access Mo's account on the day of the murder. He did admit to the defense that the data is not always 100% trustworthy, but he believes what he presented was accurate. The next witness was Katie Connor, who is a homicide detective with Austin Police Department. The day after the murder, she came into work, learned about Mo's murder the night before, and this was at a point where Colin had just been brought in for his very first interview. She said when someone is being interviewed, they have a camera in the rooms with a little monitor outside where detectives that are not participating in that interview can still monitor it. And as the interview progressed with Colin, it became clear to investigators that they needed to bring Kaitlin in and talk to her. We know she had that misdemeanor warrant. They arrested her on that. The first clue that led them to Kaitlin, other than Colin saying that Kaitlin had a jealous nature, was some surveillance that showed that black Jeep going down that alley road right by Cash's apartment. When Kaitlin came in, Detective Connor, who was on the stand, interviewed her. They admit the interview video into evidence and it is shown to the jury. Kaitlin is cuffed when the camera comes on and asks if she can have more information about why she is there and has been arrested. They say she looked nervous on that video, not knowing, am I arrested for this murder? Because it was fresh. It had just happened. And, I think when you're in a jealous rage and you're going to murder somebody like Kaitlin was, you don't think about consequences. You don't think that everybody pretty much in this country has doorbell cameras or has surveillance around their house. Detective Connor told Kaitlin she doesn't know, but she can get clarification to let her know. Kaitlin asks if she needs an attorney present since she doesn't even know what this arrest warrant is for. That girl was sweating some bullets, y'all. Detective Connor said that her name came up while they were interviewing Colin. And they sort of do that common tactic in interrogations where they'll say, hey, we got this person in the next room and they're telling all. So you better tell what you know or they're going to throw you under the bus. It really didn't work with Kaitlin. She was stoic and pretty emotionless the whole interview. Somebody knocks on the interview room door and the detective goes outside. When she comes back in, she tells Kaitlin there's been a mistake with her birthday on that arrest warrant and that she's free to go. Kaitlin, of course, switches gears from being a little nervous to, you cuffed me at my home for absolutely no reason, then again asks if she needs an attorney. She doesn't say, I want my attorney present. She's asking if she needs one. She also said that getting arrested was humiliating because her neighbors saw it happen. Girlfriend, less than 2 months later, the whole world is going to see you get arrested. This was a primer. Detective Connor asked if she knew why she was there, and Kaitlin said that Colin had told her that somebody in the cycling world was dead. Detective Connor said they've heard Kaitlin was jealous that Colin went out with Mo the day before, on the day Mo was murdered. And Kaitlin, the only time, according to Detective Connor, that Kaitlin shows emotion, she rolls her eyes and kind of turns her head and said, that's not true. Detective Connor asked, what were you doing yesterday? And Kaitlin said she wants to leave, but she doesn't get up to leave. She's just sitting there. She keeps saying, I want to go, I want to go. Detective Connor says you're free to go, but Kaitlin wants to probably see if they're going to give her anything to give her an indication of where they're at in this investigation. Detective Connor tells Kaitlin that her Jeep was seen very close to the murder scene around the time of the murder, and they want to get her side, and it's important to get her side. Again, Kaitlin wants to leave, but again, doesn't get up to leave. Detective Connor says to the state, she told Kaitlin, the door's unlocked, you're free to go. Kaitlin denies knowing that Mo and Colin had been together that day before. Detective Connor informs Kaitlin they have evidence showing otherwise. She gets a warrant for DNA samples from Kaitlin and Colin both. And Detective Connor didn't see Kaitlin again until after being caught in Costa Rica. Some of the things they found in her possession in Costa Rica: a receipt for her plastic surgery with the fake name Allison Page. There were documents, SIM cards for phones, her passport, and her sister's passport. I'm putting a picture of that up on the screen here. If you look to the left, you see Kaitlin, and that's kind of the Kaitlin that we saw before she was arrested and looked like the right side of the picture, which is her sister Christine's passport. And you can see after that plastic surgery and dyeing her hair, she really did favor her sister, but still not in a way that's just, you would think they were twins or even really sisters, to be honest. Her sister's passport had been stamped in Costa Rica by customs. Of course, Caitlin's had not. They found a plane ticket in her sister's name, a Walmart receipt for a prepaid Visa card in the amount of $500, names of attorneys written down. Kaitlin had some debit cards, one of those being Colin's, by the way, insurance cards, cash including pesos, her COVID vaccination card, she had prescriptions from the plastic surgeon that was made out to the alias that she was going by. On cross, the defense wants to know about the procedures that the Austin Police Department follows. And ever since Kaitlin was arrested, from that very first interview, the defense has been finger pointing at the Austin PD about how this investigation was conducted. I was not surprised this came up. The defense asked, was the door to the interview room locked? And Detective Connor said at first, yes, it was. The defense kind of insinuates that Kaitlin asked for attorney, and the interview should have been stopped right then and there. But Detective Connor said that Kaitlin asked if she needed an attorney. She didn't say, I want my attorney. I'm not going to answer your questions. She didn't say she wanted her attorney there at that time. So Detective Connor was well within her rights to continue questioning her, especially when Kaitlin wouldn't get up and leave like she said she wanted to. I guess curiosity got the best of her. The defense asked if Kaitlin was read her Miranda rights, and Detective Connor said that Kaitlin was not under arrest at that time. He asked if any of the investigators asked Kaitlin to remain in the Austin area, and she said no. At that time, Kaitlin was able to travel anywhere she wanted to. But on redirect, the state just brings it home and asks if they told Kaitlin she could use her sister's passport to leave the country. Detective Connor says no. They talk about how Kaitlin really became a person of interest to a suspect in this case between the video of the Jeep near Cash's home, as well as the jealousy issues she had with Mo. And Colin also told investigators who were interviewing him that there were guns in the home that she had access to. So it all started to fit. One thing that the defense is saying to a lot of these investigators, no fingerprints, we've got no eyewitnesses, no this, no that. Just recently, in a very big case that I covered in person, the Alec Murdaugh trial, that was largely a circumstantial case. He still was found guilty, and circumstantial evidence can be as powerful as forensics because juries are allowed to use their common sense. You know, if you've got all these little pieces that fit together, you don't necessarily need some big palm print at the crime scene to say that it's likely Kaitlin did it. You know, you think about a world where we only convicted if we had forensics to tie a person directly to that scene. We would not be putting a lot of bad people behind bars. A lot of cases are fought and won on largely circumstantial evidence, as this one I do believe will end the same way without community supervision. Sorry, Kaitlin. The next witness was Michael Allen with the Secret Service. He works in digital forensics, and he also works with the software Cellbrite. If you follow true crime, you're very familiar with that. That software collects, reviews, analyzes, and manages digital data, and it's very confusing. He was contacted by Austin investigators to unlock Kaitlin's iPhone. They didn't have the technology to do so. And in situations like that, the Secret Service or the FBI will step in and help these agencies that don't have the capacity to do things like that. He was able to get all the data that was available on her phone. On cross, the defense asks about him getting data off of an infotainment center. And the state says, look, he's not here to testify about an infotainment center. He's here to testify about an iPhone. The next witness is Emir Perez, who is with the U.S. Secret Service. He was brought on the case May 19th, the day after Kaitlin arrived in Costa Rica. And that was when, of course, investigators in Austin realized she's out of the country. She's in Costa Rica. He got local authorities up to speed on the progress of the case back in the States. And Mr. Perez did some good old-fashioned gumshoe detective work. Talked to people who owned and worked at hostels, restaurants, bars. He would do surveillance on the beach to see if he could spot Kaitlin. He realized at that point a lot of women kind of fit that same demographic that Kaitlin did. He talks about going to a surfing competition to see if he could spot Kaitlin there, and he said he was the only person at that competition not watching the surfers. His big break came on June 29th. He found out that she was staying at this place called Don John's, which is a surfing and yoga hostel. So he goes there and he sees a man and a woman sitting outside, and he starts talking to them in Spanish, asking just random questions about the hostel, like the price, what did the rooms have. The woman was using her phone to translate. Initially, he did not realize he was speaking to Kaitlin. She obviously looked very, very different than the picture we all were used to when she was on the run. He said that her hair had been dyed darker, her lips were swollen, she had a bandage on her nose. But when he got close enough and could look into her eyes, he realized, boom, this is her. So he left and informed local police that he had found her. They would have to be the ones to arrest her. So he watched from a distance from his car. They took her into custody and she was taken to a jail that was close by. She had been using 3 to 4 aliases while she was there. Eventually admitted her name was Kaitlin Armstrong. Since she used her sister's passport to enter the country and was there illegally, they were able to deport her due to that fact alone. Also, at the time, investigators in the States were not sure exactly what charges she would be facing and if they were going to seek the death penalty. So if they would have extradited her, they would not have been able to seek death against her. It kind of worked out to the benefit of investigators that she did use her sister's passport and was deported. Perez flew with Kaitlin from Costa Rica to Houston. That's where she originally went when she got back to the States. So if you're on YouTube, you can see the pictures here. The top row are the before pictures and the bottom row are the after pictures. And it doesn't even look like the same person. Maybe the hair. Now in these bottom pictures, of course, she's not smiling like in the two up top. The far right's kind of a looking down pose. A lot of people don't know what a hostel is. It's kind of like dorms as opposed to a hotel room. There's usually bunk beds lined up on both walls. There's communal areas like bathrooms are communal. At this place, you can actually get private little huts or treetop rooms. But it seems like Kaitlin was staying in the common area and she was paying around $50 a night to stay there. We have also heard that she was teaching yoga to be able to afford to stay there. The cost was around $50 a night. And on Cross, they ask how he can be sure that the items that were sent from Costa Rica actually belong to Kaitlin. And he says the passports have her photo and her name on it. And Kaitlin said it was her stuff. The defense says that Costa Rica isn't exactly the best place for a non-Spanish speaking person to hide. Perez said, actually, it's the perfect place to hide due to the large number of American tourists that are there at any given time. The next witness is Elizabeth Stone King. She is an interpreter for Travis County. She was brought in to interpret the plastic surgery documentation for Kaitlin. Officially, she had a brow lift, a nose job, and something with her lips, I believe, like lip fillers. They show messages that Kaitlin exchanged with Jorge Badilla. That's the plastic surgeon who did her procedures in Costa Rica. She first messaged the office on June 14th asking if they had any availability for the next day for Juvederm to define lips, cheeks, and her jaw. Juvederm, how that works, it adds volume to your facial tissue. It decreases fine lines and kind of adds fillers to make your face look more smooth. The doctor said that he did have time that next day and asked what time works for her. She said 2 p.m. The surgeon asked for her name, her email, phone number, and passport number. Well, the next day, she didn't make it. So they set an appointment for the 20th, and they tell her that a rhinoplasty costs $4,350. Now, the day before that appointment, she says she can't make it, but they tell her she's on the schedule for 7:30 for her surgery that next morning. So Kaitlin says she'll be there. They ask if she has her lab work. Kaitlin says she will get there early to be sure everything's ready and in place to have her procedures done. Well, the doctor's office cancels that one and rescheduled her for June 23rd. In the next messages to the office, she asks if the stitches dissolve or will she have to come in and have them removed. She also sends them a photo of herself asking if she's having complications with her surgery. Kaitlin asked if the fold, the dent, and the wrinkles are supposed to look this way, and then she mentions that she feels a lot of bandages on her head. The doctor said the stitches will need to be taken out. She would have to come in for that. So Kaitlin confirms her appointment for her post-op and removal of her bandages, and she also wanted to double check that all of this could be done in a single appointment. On June 27th, she messages the doctor's office and says that before her surgery, she asked if the doctor could add chin and lip fillers. But she said the person that she communicated that to did not tell the doctor before her procedure. And she asked if they have any kind of a payment plan that they offer, and also wants to know, could her doctor do this filler stuff at her post-op appointment? They go on to show the jury photos of her post-op. It shows her face is bruised. She has stitches on her eyebrows and her nose. She did not want the surgeon to do the typical before and after pictures, but he said they had to be done. They're very important. On cross, the defense is questioning the authenticity of the documents. The witness is like, look, I'm just here to interpret the documents. And the state says they're not fake. Next witness, Daniel Portnoy, who works for digital forensics, very technical, explaining how he does what he does. And I'm just going to sum it up and say the dude's smart. He analyzed a lot of electronic devices, 4 iPhones, 2 MacBooks, the infotainment center that came from Kaitlin's Jeep, another laptop. And he was the one who actually asked for the U.S. Secret Service to get involved to get Kaitlin's phone unlocked. They showed progression photos of that disassembly of the infotainment center until they reached the drive that has all the data on it. They show his report to the jury. And navigation events starts when the car is cranked. It ends when the cars turned off. He saw two events that were of interest related to the day of Mo's murder. They show an animation of her route from her home. The first trip starts at 7:20 and was verified by surveillance in a separate place. At 7:42 p.m., that car is on Maple Avenue, which is the street Cash lives on. Her Jeep is tracked, just making nonstop circles in that area, just stalking, kind of like a vulture. You know, they circle. That's kind of the image I got when I was reading my notes. The graphic has her route after this in the vicinity, just all around Cash's apartment. From 8:11 to 8:19, there's no movement with the car, so she was stationary. At 8:22, she is moving north. At 8:37, the car is back near the alleyway. There's a total of 3 trips down the alley overall. At 8:39, the car is stopped next to that alley, and it's turned off at 8:40. It doesn't move again until 9:17 p.m., 2 minutes after the screams and the shots are heard on that surveillance camera. There is a discrepancy with the tracking point at this time. It shows her going through somebody's yard, but the witness says that this is common, this happens. Ultimately, the totality of the report shows she was stalking that area. At 9:37, the car stops. At 9:43, it's moving again, and then just down the road, it stops again. By 9:47, it's moving. At 9:48, she is in the neighborhood where hers and Colin's house is. That was it for today. I think that having the jury see these plastic surgery photos, seeing these communications with the doctor's office, seeing the visual of this animation that the witness put together showing her route the night that Mo was murdered, all that's very powerful stuff. I heard Kaitlin was very much looking at this animation herself, very focused on that. So there's no court tomorrow, so we won't have an episode about this case tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to do an update episode or not. I haven't decided. I kind of feel like I'm just going to go hang out with Grammy all day. I need to go sit and chill with her and talk about everything under the sun, and she's wanting me to help her get some of her Christmas decorations up. She takes it slow these days. She's 89, but she is awesome. If I see you tomorrow, I see you. If not, enjoy your weekend. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, do me a big favor, hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it with your friends who are interested in this case or any other case that I'm covering. By the way, let me know if you like this camera set up a little better than what I've been doing, which is a closer view and a blurred background. I kind of like this because I love my peace sign painting. These new lights are pretty cool. They can kind of like do multicolors. You can see the logo, although it's kind of hard to get it all in the frame. I really didn't think about it when I placed that logo on the wall. I still want to get a neon sign to put back there. One thing at a time, right? All right, guys, we will see you soon. Hope you have a good rest of your evening.